Hey friends, I don't know about you, but I was tired of setting goals and not achieving them because the more and more it happened, the more it eroded my self-belief and the confidence that I would ever achieve them in the first place. But then you'd also set goals sometimes and you'd be fired up when it started. And then eventually it's almost like you lost the way. Somehow you forgot. And then 6 months later, life was busy. You've done some procrastinating. You've been busy to learn it. You didn't know what to do. And then you fall out of focus. Well, I really was determined that this year was going to be a lot different. And I went all in on the research because I was determined to figure out not just what the online trend is saying, but what really impacts achieving your goals, because this could be the best year ever. And if you have that ambition and fire in your belly, then you know that you have the potential and you're just waiting for something to click into place. You know, it's for everything just to marry up together. Now, I'm sharing some really new research. So it's kind of exciting because it was only done in 2018, which I love the relevancy of our modern lives and of the fact that they really understood what we're doing now. But also, not only does this research cover the two areas that must marry together to have this perfect blend of achieving your goals, but also I love that it embodies neuroscience. Instead of our brains working against us, you know, with the doom scrolling and the YouTube binge watching, going down a rabbit warren, and all these other things that we do because it gives us more pleasure, it gives us whatever our brains are craving. Instead of that, it was all about the neuroscience of using our brains to actually help us achieve our goals. This, to me, was a game changer. Leveraging neurochemistry, leveraging the way our brain actually works so that it's on our side for a change, that I'm interested in, and you should be too. Now, I'm going to address the elephant in the room first, because we've all seen the trending news that you don't set goals, folks. No, you set systems, not goals. But you're probably like me and you've questioned that already. How can you have a system if you don't know what the goal is? I know, crazy, right? It's like Stephen Covey said, you have to begin with the end in mind. So we have the end, and somehow we have to put the ladder against that wall. And that's the direction. That's the North Star. Maybe it's not fixed. Maybe it's kind of floating there because we can accept better. We can be adjusting and growing and figuring it out as we go, but it's there, and we have a ladder taking us in that direction. That is what I'm talking about. In fact, I do another video on the types of goals you should be setting to achieve them, and I'm going to pop the link underneath. But first of all, I want to celebrate that you're here with me, that you're ambitious like me, that you love to set goals, and you love to be part of a community that do the same thing. Because I know that when you set goals and then you have buddies or, business friends or colleagues or friends or people around you who also have goals, and everybody's rooting for each other. There's that sort of energy of, how are you getting on with this? Tell me about this, tell me about that. And they are genuinely rooting for you. And you have this real conscious creation in you that steps away from the noise and the busyness and the news and everything else that's going on. That is so exciting. I want to welcome you here to this video. I want to welcome you and your friends. I'm going to make sure that I cover the threats that are going to sabotage you on achieving your goals. I'm going to cover the key two concepts, the will and the way on how to achieve your goals. And I'm going to share with some real stories how we can get more motivated by using the natural reward system in our brain. That's right. We're going to leverage the neurochemistry for good. And I'm also going to talk about... Thanks, Dave. I'm going to cover how to get motivated and stay motivated, tapping into the natural reward system of our brain for good this time. And I'm also going to talk about how to leverage the way the brain works naturally, its function of the prefrontal cortex, so that you follow through and follow through on a plan. Yeah, that's what we're going to do here. I really hope that you are going to take some action with this, but if not, listen carefully because I have some questions that are at least going to help you eradicate some of the noise that's tripping you up, that's causing you to fail. And I know it caused me to. So the first thing is we've got the two ways, the two marrying of the two elements of our brain, the will and the way. And first of all, I am going to talk about the will because the will is kind of the first, I view the will as like the first step. The will needs to be on your side. It's the thing that's going to create that dopamine, the endorphins, the desire, the want, the pull to do it deep down. We don't go through emotions because we just think we should do something. I don't want to go and put the washer on for the sake of putting the washer on. I put the washing on to feel that hit that I've achieved something. So the will is all about consciously creating who you want to be and your desire to do it. Let me give you a story. I think this is probably the best way to describe one of the biggest threats that's going to damage your will, which is going to give you all the good stuff you need. Back when I was in corporate career, believe it or not, I was very ambitious and I really wanted to get a directorship. And as fate would have it, I was on the right track and I got invited to a management away event. It was a few days up in the Highlands, beautiful Scotland countryside, beautiful hotel, amazing food, amazing drink. Really enjoyed it. And that night we were with drinks and I got chatting to another director. She was a female director, really admired her. She'd been very successful in her career. And I had young children at the time. I had 2 young children. She also had children. And she shared with me how her daughter was really angry with her. And as we got drinking and talking, I was really inquisitive as to why. Later on, she revealed to me that it was parents' evening the previous week and she was too busy with work that she couldn't go. She couldn't attend. Her daughter was so angry with her. You might shrug your shoulders, but I had a different view. I was that daughter once. My parents were always too busy. They were business owners. They never had any time. And they didn't go to my parents' evenings. I remember thinking, they don't care. They're not bothered. They're not interested in me. And I carried that hurt. It's a little thing, but I carried that feeling for a long time. And I know her daughter would too. Having a young family was magical to me. I gave up everything to be with my son. I never wanted to put him down. I never wanted to leave him with anyone. So here's what happened to my will that night. My desire, my will to become a director, it just disappeared. Almost as if I was self-sabotaging. I started to be a bit evasive or probably not as I don't know, accommodating at work maybe. I'd mentally decided I'd moved on. That was the wrong path for me. Because here's what happens. Your identity is an amazing thing. And when I'd got this identity that I was going to be the career woman and I was going to get my directorship and I was on that path and it felt aligned. And then that was my identity. But then I was also a mum, and a mum came with values like loving my children, putting my family first, being around for them when they're sick and other things like that. That put their family became the top value in my life, second to money and status and all the things that I've been trying to achieve. And then over here, I had this goal to become a director. And once I'd learnt that information that I couldn't marry the two, that I wondered how I was going to marry the two, I was already on a few days away and it was killing me to be without the kids. I'd never left them overnight before. The conflict started. The goal's over here, my identity's here, and it's pulling away. It's like repelling. You know, when two magnets turn the opposite way, they were repelling each other. There was no way I was going to achieve this goal for as long as my values and my identity was actually pulling me away, because the person I had been had changed. I was now a mum. It was different for me. No judgment to you if you're a career woman and you have a different set of values or different priorities. But that's how it happened for me. And that's what's going to happen for you. This idea of the will that the psychology found, that the research found, if you have an incongruence with your identity, no matter how much you think you want this goal, your identity will pull the opposite way because your values pull you the opposite way. That misalignment, I think people call it. It's like going back to the Covey quote. If the ladder is against the wrong wall, you must have the end in mind. And my end was a directorship post. And then I realized that I didn't want that. And the goal moved because of this friction, this conflict, this repelling. So the first rule of the will is that your identity, and that's in all its values and your identity, who you are, that must align and marry up with the goal that you've chosen. And then you get the will, because all of a sudden your motivation is, I really want to do this. This is who I am. I am the person who does this thing. Just like in James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, when he says, you don't start being a runner by saying, I'm going to go for a run. You call yourself a runner. You're going to stay congruent to what a runner does. I had a really small example of this in the cafe the other day. My friends think I'm healthy. I have good moments and I have bad. I'm not perfect by any means, but I try to be a healthy person. So we're in the cafe and everyone's lining up and getting chocolate eclairs and beautiful cakes, millionaire shortbread. And I'm looking at these cakes thinking, oh, do I have a cake? And I look at my friends and their immediate reaction was, Sue won't have a cake. She's healthy. I didn't have a cake. I didn't order a cake. I wanted to stay so congruent with a healthy identity and persona that I didn't have a cake. How much of it was them and me? I don't know. But here's what I know is when we were sat at the table and they were eating these eclairs and the cream was going everywhere, at no point did I think I wished I had it. I was quite happy to go, yeah, I'm glad I didn't have one. Isn't that strange? It's just so strange. I want to talk more about the identity just for a minute longer before we move on to the way. And the way is a crucial piece of the puzzle, so don't miss it. But before we do, your identity, I want you to really think about it. Because the identity that you adopt also gives you the standards that you are going to live by, the standards that you do and act on. It gives you your habits. It gives you everything. Because once you have that identity and it's part of who you are, you've embedded it, you own it, I'm going to stay congruent to it. It gets rid of the noise. So it says, actually, I don't do these things anymore, like eating the cake. Sometimes I'm going to eat cake. But there are things like I've never smoked. I'm not perfect. Don't think I am. But I've never smoked because I've never considered it part of my identity to be a smoker. In the same way that James Clear says, if you want to quit smoking, you need to, instead of identify as I don't smoke anymore, you're just a healthy person who just doesn't do that. And that's your identity. But it's so much deeper, because when you're an entrepreneur and you leave a job or you're growing your business, you might translate from being a coach or a freelancer or a consultant who does time for money into a content creator who starts to leverage, into an entrepreneur who starts to build a business, into a business owner. And that's that transition of your identity from the one-to-one service model that relies on you to something far greater and scalable. But that requires a shift in you that says, I'm comfortable in this. This is congruent with who I am now and how I show up. This is a major transition, because those standards, those habits that I talked about, when you have that identity, it says I show up every morning and I create content, or I show up every morning on camera, on live, on video. And that's what I do. It doesn't mean you know how to. It doesn't mean you do it all right. But it means that is congruent with who you are and how you're showing up, which gives you the will, the motivation, the dopamine hits, because being congruent with that's fulfilling in its own right. This is so powerful. I can't begin to tell you. This is critical to goal success. And that's when we move on to the way. So we have the will, and now we have the way. But there are a few things that are really going to get in our way. I know I had this massively. The biggest one, overwhelm. Oh, everything is on my shoulders. I've got to deal with the family. I've got to deal with the kids. I've got to deal with the life admin. I've got to deal with finances. I am so overwhelmed right now. I don't know where to start with my business. How many of us have ever felt like that? I need to start an email list. I should be live on social media on every single channel. I should be doing a YouTube channel, a podcast. Breathe. Overwhelm. Overwhelm is crushing the way. How are we ever going to get to a goal even if we have the will, because the way is so overburdened with everything that we're doing? We need to strip it back. And the second thing that really kills our goals is the lack of a strategy. I know, because most people I work with have no strategy. I know, I didn't have one either. When you leave and you set up on your own as a coach or a freelancer, you don't have a strategy. You're still trying to figure out what a business even is. And then when you get to a point where you've been doing this for years, you realize some people around you have a strategy. You join masterminds and coaching groups and you figure out, what's their strategy? You're trying to pinch and borrow and steal and mash together something. But if it's not clear, if you don't have it, then you're sabotaging yourself with the way. The way is because the working mechanism of your brain, that is the prefrontal cortex, I hope I said that right, needs a clear path. You know what it's like? It's when you sit down to a blank page, but you don't know what you're supposed to be writing on it. It's when you stand in front of your video camera, but you don't know what you're supposed to be talking about. Your prefrontal cortex needs a clear path, a real focus, and it needs the strategy and the know-how to do it. And if you don't, you procrastinate. You say you're not good enough. You say you'll start tomorrow, and then you've got an imbalance. You've got the will, but your way is not there. And it can be both. It can be both that aren't adequately filled up enough. So this is the doing part of your brain. This is the one that likes the checklists, the reminders, the plan, the notebooks, the index cards. If you love to do something really basic, I just do index cards now because I got fed up of not following a process. I have a big plan. That's like my battle board plan. And then I have my index cards. And I keep it simple. And if I just look at them, at least I know I'm making progress forward. That's the systems part of things, the doing. But what if you don't know how to do it? Because I had this. You are in a new realm. You're still trying to figure out how to grow your business. You're still trying to figure out how to get a YouTube subscriber following or a podcast following. How do you do that? How do you build subscribers? And you've got two choices here. You either have the cognitive ability and load that says, I can learn this and then I'll do it, or you don't and you outsource it. But it's still part of your clear path. It's still part of your strategy. It's part of the way you're going to get it done. There's one thing that really crushes you is when you have a goal and you execute on a plan and then you expect to achieve the goal, but it doesn't happen because the execution of the plan seems to be a bit messy. It's all going wrong. You're doing it as if it's the person who told you the plan in the first place and they passed it over to you in a blueprint. But for some reason, it's not working for you. And it's to do with this idea that there's really a vector theory of change. So it's not that you have a fixed goal and you have a fixed way of doing it and a fixed path. It's that you need to be heading in that direction. So imagine a vector. A vector is like an arrow that sends you in a general direction of where you want to go. But because of where you're starting from, your skills, your identity, your competencies, your level, your overwhelm and commitments, the way you're going to get there, your path will be slightly different to somebody else. You will learn different skills. We all do. We've all got different weaknesses. You will outsource different things than other people. And you may even have to evolve and change what you do as part of your plan because your industry is different, or your business model is different, or your life is different, or your vision is different. So vector theory is saying it's more of a constant evolution, and that really your identity change that needs to happen with the evolution and the learning, that's a key part of this puzzle. It's not fixed. And actually, by having it fixed, it gives us this idea that we're failing all the time. You know, I talked about this in the beginning. Setting a goal and feeling like you're failing all the time, it's demoralizing. The vector theory allows you to have a general direction and know that you're heading in the right direction. Even if that specific goal isn't met, you're somewhere in the right region. And that is still fulfilling because that is still progress that aligns with your identity. And it's still marrying the will and the way together. So many of us struggle with achieving big goals. And yet we have so much potential and so much ambition that goes completely untapped. I wanted the will and the way research to highlight how we can hack into our brains and get it on our side so that if we can marry enough of the will with the way and enough of the strategy and the focus in the way of how to do that with enough of the identity shifting that gives us that massive desire because it's congruent, and that's the what we're going to do and the why we're going to do it is all keeping us motivated and on track. Even when it gets hard, even when it feels long, we're still clear on what we're doing and why. That's incredibly powerful because in order to achieve our goals, we need the two to function, to marry together equally. If they're out of balance, then you can see how we can fail quite easily. You know, if our identity is not congruent with the goal, then it's going to tip the scales and you're not going to want to shoot for that goal. You're not going to want to do the how. If you have no strategy, no systems, then no matter how much desire you have, no matter how congruent it is with your identity and your values, you're not going to achieve it. I'd love to hear what amazing goals you've got in the comments, and I'm really rooting for you. So do let me know, and I'll see you again next time.